Welcome to the Leela Life Show. I am your host, Linda Andrews, and I am so happy and blessed to have Clifton Sellers with us today. He is with legacybuilder.co. So if you're on your web browser, go check him out now and come back. Welcome, Clifton, to the show.
Excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, every day that passes, I think this conversation feels stronger and stronger. And to me, entrepreneurship starts to feel, in some ways, survival. That word sounds a little dramatic, but I just see the world as what can look sometimes as bananas. And I think that entrepreneurship, when done quote unquote the right way, which I'd love to talk about what you think that is, but just the opportunity to have a profitable, life-giving business solving problems in the world that can have an impact on you, your audience, your loved ones. It's a real blessing, yet so many people, what I think the statistic is 90% fail.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
such a
I
big
think,
gift with such a large failure rate. What is going on?
yeah, I don't know. I think it's really easy to look into statistics to shape our reality.
Mm,
I think first of all, I think it keeps a lot of people from starting in the first place. Mm. I think a lot of people want to pursue entrepreneurship in this economy. It gets labeled as the gig economy or the side hustle phenomena.
mhm,
We think about that a lot, and I mean, a lot of people are struggling financially right now.
mhm.
A lot of people are, and they're thinking, "How do I get out of this cycle? And how do I break free from it?" And then looking at the statistics that we see in mainstream media, it's like, well, this number of businesses fail. Why even start in the first place? And it's kind of a cycle of desperation and a cycle of, well, what do I do? And I think that's the problem you have to tackle first whenever you think about going on any kind of endeavor is, am I trying to beat the statistics or am I trying to beat myself?
Mm,
And I think a lot of people that set out to try to beat a statistic, it's a long road. It's a dark road. You can think
mhm,
about it for in a lot of different aspects, but the number one is nothing of greatness or excellence in our life is going to be easy. It doesn't
mhm.
happen by accident. I read a lot, and I read a quote the other day, and uh, it said, "No great entrepreneurial journey started with, I had an idea, everything went great, the end." It's the ability to endure pain and suffering and the unknown over an extended period of time that truly leads to greatness. And I think a lot of people in our society want things to happen in their time frame, me included, right? Who
Mhm.
doesn't like to who doesn't like for things to happen exactly how we envisioned for them to happen?
Mhm.
But I think with a little bit of more of a realistic long-term mindset, that people can see a lot more success because of how they measure the success that they're seeing.
And that's an important note is the long-term success. I think sometimes people get into entrepreneurship, and I would include myself in this, where it was like a escape hatch or something. Like X, Y, or Z isn't going great or working well. I got to get out of it. Let me find a different path. And then
Mm.
there's a lot of pressure for that to not only work, but replace what the other experience was. And in a at least in my experience, like an unrealistic timeline. It took a lot of trial and error to understand this is the long game. I need to put myself in a better, more responsible position, and this can't all be happening overnight. And I think there was a lot, and this was 2018, a lot of messaging even then about 6K and in whatever time frame, and you're just like, oh, if they say it, I know I can do it. But then that can set yourself up for failure in getting into that loop. And there's so much to unpack there. I like how you bring it back to what you need it to be and your own excellence. And that's something that I think we share where that's all we can control is my daily actions and, where that time, energy, attention, and money. I call that the team acronym, my own time, energy, attention, and money, where that can go.
That's great. Yeah, that's a great frame. And I think that's what you have to find is the frame in which you can repeat for the
Mm-hmm.
the longest period of time. We're
Mm-hmm.
always searching for the next answer,
Mm-hmm.
especially in entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
And we're inundated in today's society with answers.
Mhm.
Everybody has the answer. They have the answer for leads, they have the answer for time, they have an answer for relationships. I mean, we're all getting inundated with these solutions, and we know that everything is an experiment. Everything that we do in business is an experiment, and there's not, if there was one set of decisions that a person had to make in order to be successful in business or entrepreneurship, everybody would have a six pack and be millionaires, right?
Mhm.
But there's not. Our journey, both of us, the place that I am today versus the place I was 3 years ago, is completely different. And if you ask me, every little bitty decision that has led up to this moment, I can tell you, I made a lot of wrong ones. I
Mhm.
made a lot of wrong decisions. And I think somewhere along the way, I realized that every decision I made was a learning opportunity and an ability to say, well, that's not the road I want to go down. And I started having, I think the best learning thing I had was I needed to quit depending so much on trying to find the right answer and instead create a thought pattern and a way to make decisions in my head where it was more of how would it make me feel and set me up to be the best version of myself or my business. Whereas, oh, if I hire X or if I do Y, all my problems are going to go away because I think a lot of people in business are trying to get rid of problems, which is not wrong.
Mhm.
But there's almost this rosiness to it that one day I will wake up and there will be no problems. And that's just not the case. There's always going to be problems. I like to call them opportunities.
Mhm.
There's always going to be opportunities to grow and succeed in business. And that's why you have to develop a love for the process and a love for showing up every day on your own terms, accepting both the success and failure of your actions, and constantly analyzing your inputs that lead to your outputs. And when
Mhm.
people fall in love with the process, that's why, like, what's the common denominator between all people running? They're focused on health, they're focused on fitness, they're focused on how they allocate their time,
Mhm.
they're focused on their family, they're focused on X, Y, and Z. They're focused on all the inputs in their life
Mhm.
because they know where their focus goes, prosperity follows.
Mhm.
Where our focus goes, prosperity follows. Not immediately, but wherever if we want to get in the best shape of our life and we start doing this and we start going to the gym, when we start eating right and we start focusing on that, prosperity will follow. But a lot of people want that quick fix, and it's just not there. And that's why you have to fall in love with the journey.
That delayed gratification in a
Yeah.
society that over calculates for comfort and safety, right? It's like we've been trained how to optimize for comfort and safety, and that delay of gratification, that's the trade-off in that. And you see that everywhere. I asked someone recently, do you think most people take action? It was like a curveball question, right? And they're like, what? Well, no. And it's like, well, they were concerned about someone stealing some of their stuff. And I'm just like, people don't take the action to like forget them stealing. The majority of the people won't take action. And I just found
Yeah.
that so interesting because we live in a time where you can access any bit of information to your point. Like we could find out how to do anything at any time. And the blessing of the curse of that is that doesn't substitute the action, and each of those actions, like the long-term game of the payoffs. Something I've been sitting with around, like, there's give in your mistakes. There's a little bit of give, and like I'd almost, if I could say, a 20% buffer to mistakes where they're not usually instantaneously catching up. So you do have
Yeah.
some lag or give to the readjustment or the learnings. And this was a funny insight somewhat recently in the past year. I'm like, all right, business is solving a problem. And then every day is solving more problems. Like, this is so stupid.
You know what I say to
Like,
people?
simple. Yeah.
One of my favorite frames of business is that it's a privilege.
Mhm.
I think it's so easy with where we're at
Mhm.
to say like, God, I got these problems. I got these people. I got this thing. I got this bill. I got this stuff. And we're waking up. I mean, and we signed up for this. You know, it's one thing to say like I got kidnapped, dropped into a hole, and somebody's like dropping problems down this hole at me every day long. I have no control. We chose this.
Right. You chose the journey
And,
that is this.
yeah, and it's a privilege. It's a privilege to have problems. It's a privilege to solve them. It's a privilege to work with clients. It's a privilege to literally wake up and have optionality in our day, whether it's like no matter what scale it is.
Mhm.
I love like how some people frame it. It's just like we we glamorize these like huge businesses, right? Like, well, how can I get to I want to make $5 million a year or $20 million a year or this or that. Some people are happy making $40,000 a year.
Mhm.
Some people are happy. When I started this, I wanted to make an extra $500 a month to pay a car payment. And now it's like, it's funny because every time you set a goal and reach it, a new goal is going to replace that. So unless you realize like the fundamental things that make you a happy and fulfilled person, no goal or reaching of that goal is going to like quench your thirst. You're just going to set a new goal. You're just going to set a new standard of comparison for your life. And that's where a lot of people fall into the trap because every time you reach the peak,
Mhm.
you look up and there's just another peak. And you're like, well, what? I thought this was the peak.
Got
What am I
there.
doing? I got to get to that peak now. And then guess what? When you get to that peak, there's another one. And so then I tell people all the time, I'm like, what what brings you joy? Like why did you start this in the first place? Why are you doing it at all? And then when you get to the core of that answer, then you can start making like decisions not based on some imaginary finish line that's only a starting line.
The finish line, that's the starting line. You know what that reminds me of as a side? When I got married. It's
Yeah.
like you have this history with each other and you get married and it's so framed as the destination. And then you have this miraculous moment of a beginning and it's the beginning. And I remember like the first couple of months of marriage, I'm just like, why didn't anybody talk about the beginning? It was like, oh,
Mhm.
you're down the aisle, it's over. What it's the beginning? And in a lot of ways, every day in business is the beginning. Each of these things take on a life of its own and become a project or an initiative could become its own business in itself one day if you let it. There's so many twists and turns that can evolve. And the privilege reminds me of I get to do this and stepping into that daily and maybe
Yep.
multiple times a day.
Oh yeah. It's a
That pro
constant.
Yeah, and that problem solving, like business is solving a problem and every day there are problems to solve. I look at that as like an objective truth of what's happening. And in that, I've noticed the resilience building like, oh, I'm getting quicker at solving problems. Oh, I'm getting better. Oh, there's new problems. Oh, these are new and hard. I don't have any context for this. And like that evolution continues on. But in some ways, it helps me understand the landscape because this is what it is. And it's just like, oh, this all, it's like doing a mile run and the first day you have to walk and now you can run the whole thing. Your capacity for it all shifts and evolves over the course of the journey.
100%.
The other
100%.
the other thing, did you do sports? I see your sports hats.
Yeah. I played football in college.
Okay, so you may relate to this. I was a swimmer in college.
Nice.
Swimming's a little different than football, and you may have your own relationship to what I'm about to say. You touch the wall in swimming, and you can always get 1/100th faster,
Mm.
which is a really crazy experience because even if it's the best time, you could have gone 100th faster. And I think in business, like you can always get to the next milestone. It can always be a little better. For me, I've found that to be an inspiration, but it can be maddening. And I'm curious for you what you do to celebrate those milestones along the way or how you advise other people to do that. But it's like the next thing always is there. It could be better. And how to, I look at your website, I look at your emails, like they're beautiful. I don't necessarily know if everything started perfect. It sounds like it didn't, right? It was a lot of mistakes and then certain things click. But
Yeah. I think um I think we go through seasons in our life. Uh we're talking about business, so I'll stay in that realm.
yeah.
Um I think we go through sprinting and uh then moments of pure exhaustion and then
Hmm.
moments of this and moments of that. And one thing I've done to remain consistent is just, I mean, gratitude, it's such an overused term,
Hmm.
almost so that people have become desensitized to it.
Hmm.
We talk about gratitude or productivity or this or that. It's something that we almost think we'll get to later. Like we almost imagine us on our deathbed saying, "Well, all this will be worth it when I'm on my deathbed and I can look back and I can say, well, look at all this stuff I've accomplished because I didn't take the time to let up. I didn't let up. I just kept going. And having children has humbled me a lot. I have two beautiful daughters, and thank God because I that between them and my wife, they saved my life. So,
Beautiful.
but to think about that, it's like I look at my 6-year old and I look at my 3-year old, and you see time passing right before you, the how fleeting it is.
Hmm.
Because when you're in your 20s, you're invincible.
Hmm.
You're like, oh, I have all the time in the world. Like I have unlimited amount of time. And then you have children, you're like, whoa, I just brought my oldest home yesterday. Well, actually, a third of her life with me is gone. And when you start thinking of things like that, like this business, like it's easy for me to look where I'm at now and say, like, oh man, I've made it. I have money. I work on my own terms. I've been my own boss for over a year. Everything's great. It wasn't too long ago where I didn't even know what I was doing. And I still don't to a degree
Hmm.
because there's new information.
Hmm.
Um, so it's thinking about that. Have you ever watched The Office?
Some bits and pieces over time. I've seen it,
Uh,
yes.
I'm a TV show junkie, so forgive
Okay.
me.
Yeah.
But one of the famous quotes in The Office is towards the end of the show, and the guy says, I wish somebody told me it was the good times when they were happening."
Hmm.
And I think about that a lot.
Hmm.
I was like, man, right now I mean, we don't know. We don't. I mean, I could die tomorrow. You
Hmm.
could. Anybody can.
Hmm.
But we live this invincible mantra that we think we have an unlimited amount of time and we have to just pack as much of what we classify as success into that time. Growing our business, signing more clients, building wealth and prosperity. And I just try to go back to like, man, when my wife and I got married, we didn't have any money and we were still happy. And now we have more money and we're still happy. And if we go broke tomorrow, we'll still be happy
Hmm.
because the core of everything isn't necessarily like the barometer in a successful life isn't wealth in terms of monetary gains. It's easy to say that now. I mean, when I was broke, I was like, God, I wish I could pay my power bill on time,
Hmm.
right? But it's you see this happen all the time. We start idealizing wealth and we achieve it.
Hmm.
And then once we achieve it, we realize that we were already wealthy and that everything we really wanted out of life was already available to us. We just had this huge thing holding us back because we couldn't meet our basic survival instincts of what society puts on us, which is like our bills,
Hmm.
paying for housing, this thing and that. So you have to, if you don't go into it with the right mindset, you see it all the time. You'll see people start buying cars and buying houses and chasing this lifestyle because on the surface, all these people look super happy.
Mhm.
But deep down, they know like the basic human measure of success, in my opinion, is relationships.
Mhm.
You know, it's how are you impacting those around you, whether it's your loved ones or complete strangers.
Mhm.
And that's how I measure happiness is the impact in which I make on the people around me. Not just my family or my friends or but complete strangers. Because a mentor told me one time, and it's really shaped the way I think about everything. And it's the fact that everybody's broken.
Mm.
Every single person we meet has brokenness inside of them,
Mhm.
and they crave to be seen. They crave validation that they're here. And if we had more people in our society meeting that need of natural humans, we'd have a better world.
Like,
It's not
"Hi,
about,
hi, I'm
yeah,
a human."
hi, I'm here.
Hello.
You're
Yeah.
seen. You're
I
not just a
see you.
cashier or some guy walking on the street, or some girl on a podcast. You know, it's just, I mean, there's so much beautifulness in the world that I think we take for granted because we're so consumed with getting to where we're going.
Mhm.
We just want to get where we're going. And we have to take a step back and understand that there's all these other things that can happen on our way to getting there. And it doesn't have to do with anything with business success.
It's interesting, the role of, say, phones in our life and how in a
Yeah.
moment you can access everything and how that can take you out of the now into usually, I think, the future, but you could also go into the past.
Yeah.
And when I think about time, energy, attention, and money, I think about how it's going to be allocated somewhere no matter what. Like it's all going somewhere by default. And then when you
Yeah.
get to be intentional about where you direct it, that's where the game changes. Like, I think about this in terms of boundaries. People will take from you until they can't take anymore. In theory, they could.
Like the giving tree.
Right, and then it's gone, but you gave everything, all of yourself, and if you're not conscious of where you're directing that, it can all be taken, and not in a way to be necessarily scared, but just intentional about where you're directing that, but the default is it's all going somewhere. And then it's like,
Yep.
"Whoa, am I letting, say, a phone take" this is something I am reflecting on personally. Like, what am I giving of myself through my phone that I'm not in the driver's seat of directing what and where and how that goes.
Yep.
And every time I notice myself being more diligent in that effort, it's like, oh, I have 20% more life today. And it can literally feel like I just got more life back, but it's like, my phone's taking my life.
Weapon of mass distraction.
Right. Yeah. The
Had a
distraction.
guy tell me that
It's
one time.
everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any what helps you combat the weapons of mass distraction?
My wife. Yeah. I think it's accountability, right?
Yeah.
There's only even the most disciplined people need accountability in their life.
Mhm.
And I think it's holding yourself to a set of non-negotiables,
Mm.
um, and valuing the time you have. I mean, you could talk about productivity hacks, you could talk about locking your phone in a box or
Mhm.
anything like that, but there has to be some semblance of discipline and accountability in order for anybody to be successful in any goal they have in their life.
Mhm.
You have to be accountable to yourself. You have to be accountable to others. You have to follow through on your word. Setting non-negotiables for your life. All this I'm doing right now is frivolous compared to raising my children, or
Mhm.
pouring into my wife,
Mhm.
or being a good friend, or serving my community. And I honestly think that because of that is why I've been seeing success in my business, because you have to keep the main thing the main thing.
Mhm.
Had a football coach say that to me one time. He was like, just keep the main thing the main thing. And I was like, man, some of these simple things these coaches say, they're just spouting out fortune cookies, but they're like, hey, it's not about like everything that has to happen to win.
Mhm.
It's about what is the main thing in your life and how can you keep showing up for that and allowing everything to flow from that main thing. And that's why you got to fill your own cup up first.
Mhm.
That's something that I talk about a lot. It's like, if I'm not my best self, I can't give my best self to others. That's
Mhm.
business, that's family, that's anybody around. Like, if I'm not taking care of myself, everybody else is getting a diluted version of me.
Mhm.
And so that's why you have to take mind, body, spirit. Like, you have to start taking accountability. And that's what I've loved the most about entrepreneurship, is because it's given me the freedom to take care of myself, which is saying a lot.
Mhm.
I mean, I could have taken care of myself before, but I think it opened my eyes to how much it matters. Like, how much it matters to take care of myself, because when I was working a job, I could be at 50% and the business would still go. Like,
Mhm.
I was only one part of a massive machine. But as like a leader and as a person driving an organization and a business, I set the standard, good or bad.
Mhm.
People are looking to me for the standard in which we operate. And so, like, if I'm not taking care of myself, mind, body, spirit, everybody suffers because of it, and that's a privilege.
Mhm.
So
That
that's a long answer, but that's
Yeah,
how I.
no, I love it. It's important. And this the standard, I woke up to something popping up on my YouTube about setting the standards. It was Tony Robbins talking about how good, basically, he was saying the jump from good to excellent, and how
Yeah.
good can quickly not be good enough because it's not excellent, and how each of the jumps, like from bad to good to excellent, he explains it a bit more eloquent, but they're exponential jumps, and then how easily you can get watered down from one of those jumps. And but the way he's talking about excellence, and excellence as an aim, and excellence as something that you're executing, could be two different things, but in each of our moments, we get to be excellent right now, and then learn from how excellent or not excellent that is, right? And keep refining. And this word precision has been something that I would be afraid of, the word precision, because of the idea of OCD, like, oh, I don't want to be too obsessed with perfection. And then the word precision helped it all take on a new life, where it's like there is the best, highest expression of something. There is a precise way to do things that eliminates excess. And even when you were talking about the time you can dedicate into your business compared to life and family and wife, it's like that time, there is constraint, there is compression. It's not going to be 24 hours. And so the more precise you are in those times that you're, say, firing in business, or able to be fully present with your different relationships, that helps everything transform to be, like, I don't know, the best, the highest expression, the full capacity that it could be. Some of this language, I think, has been really stigmatized. Even you say the best, like, be the best. It's not to be better than everyone else. To me, that's be the best version of yourself that you can be in this moment. But it can feel like we're walking on landmines.
I think we demonize obsession.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, oh, you're obsessed,
Uh-huh.
Um, a couple things. One is obsessions, the other's money. Oh, if
Mm-hmm.
you're obsessed, you're unhealthy. If you have money, you're evil.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, all limiting beliefs that have kept people from reaching new heights in their life for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I want to be happy with what I have.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't want to be that type of, I'm not that type of person.
The stats,
Um,
even like the stories of the stats. That's what that
yeah,
reminds me of. Like,
exactly.
oh,
Exactly.
businesses fail, so I'll fail.
Yeah. So I'll fail,
Mhm.
or I don't want to be obsessed with something because I mean I just want to live my life. And that's why, like, the more I run my business, the more I realize, like, working a job is pretty easy. you know? So you don't have to think a lot. You show up, you do the job, you come home. Um, it's not that hard, you know?
Mhm.
Running your business is the exact opposite. Um, it is hard, but like obsession, there's beauty in obsession
Mhm.
when done right.
Mhm.
Because great things can happen through obsession.
Mhm.
But you have to know how to harness it. You have to know, hey, this is what this means. And obsession ebbs and flows. And it can be directed
Mhm.
towards a great vehicle. And I think you can fall in love with obsession in a healthy way. Like if you ask me, I'm obsessed with what I do. I am. I love it. And I think that's healthy because obsession leads to passion, it leads to excitement, it leads to drive, it has all these things. It can also lead to addiction and depression and all these things if you allow it to. But if you
Mhm.
look at the beauty of obsession and really think about it, man, there's so much fruit that can come from it. You just have to have that correct frame of how you're looking at it.
And even with that, it's like you being obsessed with your business allows for outcomes that if you weren't, like, you know what it takes for you to be the best version of yourself in your business. I think the obsession can allow to me, it feels so serious. It's like, I'm so serious, I'm obsessed, this has to work. And that allows you to see yourself in the best way you can show up for that. That's what that's reminding me of. It's like, who do I need to be my highest performing self? Because I am obsessed with this. I'm directing this energy into this and letting that all connect. And again, like the word I get to when you were talking about like the privilege of it, I get to do this. Like I get to show up and be the best version of myself in my business. It feels serious. And in the serious can unlock so much fun. But yeah, it's like this flow that you get to direct what you want this experience to be. Do you feel
Yep.
connected to your why every day? I'm curious your business why.
My kids and my wife.
It seems like that
Uh,
from what you've shared.
what an answer, right?
Yeah.
I grew up. I was adopted,
Okay.
and then found out I was adopted later at about 9 years old,
Mhm.
and I've been obsessed with with the concept of family and legacy my entire life. And I think there are people within a generation that have to make decisions in order to reset the trajectory of their family.
Mhm.
I think it's inside everybody to make that decision, but only few choose.
Mhm.
And so my standard for business is when my life is over, whether it's tomorrow or in 80 years, hope it's not 80 years, that's 110 plus. I don't know if I could do that. But if it is, I want everybody around me, I want to set a standard of what life can look like, not of how much money you should make or what kind of house you should live in, but the direct result of actions that you take as an individual and decisions you make as they equate to the type of life you can provide for those around you. And my kids, I want them to have a very good example of what a person can do that came from humble beginnings. I mean, my dad worked really hard to to provide for us. We weren't rich by any means. I don't we weren't dirt poor, but we were just doing it.
Mhm.
And I'll set a different standard and my kids will have an opportunity to set a standard. And I think at the end of every day, like especially like my business legacy builder, building personal brands for CEOs, founders, agency owners, like our our main core value prop. Yes, we grow personal brands. Yes, we get followers. Yes, we get all the engagement and impressions and things that come along with that.
Mhm.
But we position each of our clients to have impact within their sphere of influence and outside of that. to take what they know and what they've learned, both good and bad, success and failure, and share that with an audience. We give access to education. That's why I started the account in the first place, because I wanted to take everything that I had done in my life and everything that I will do, and I wanted to show past versions of myself that it was possible. Because somewhere there's a guy sitting on the couch with his two kids asleep upstairs thinking, man, what do I do?
How can I cover the car payment?
How can I cover the car payment? How am I going to how am I going to provide for my family? How am I going to get out of this cycle and this thing that I was sold? How do I have the choice?
Mhm.
It's not even how do you get out of it.
Mhm.
It's like having a choice to get out of it is freedom within itself.
Mhm.
Dr. Julie Gerner, who's one of my favorite people on Twitter right now, one of my favorite people on the planet, said that freedom's found in optionality.
Mm.
And that's the thing. It's like we don't want more, we want options.
Mhm.
It's not that I want more money or I want more stuff. I just want to have a choice. And when you have a choice, you're not acting out of a spirit of desperation anymore.
Mhm.
You then can start making decisions just based on how you feel and not to meet the basic human necessities of living. And that's what I want. Yeah, that's what I want.
Optionality, underrated.
It is. It's
Because
fun.
you could even make the same choices you currently are in. You could
Yep.
choose to have the same circumstance, and that optionality or the perception of the option changes the feeling of the existing circumstance. When it's this or this versus it has to be this, you could still
Yeah, that's why
choose to
people are
pick.
so mad at work, right?
Mhm.
Like, when's the last time you were at work and you went into your boss's office and you were like, and they're just giving you like all this negativity and telling you you're the problem, all this stuff.
Mhm.
What do you have to do? You got to take it, right? Because
Right.
what do you got? You got the power bill coming, your mortgage is due, rent's due. You got to go to the grocery store, you got to buy diapers. You're like, I have no choice but to take this.
Mhm.
What if there was a choice? Same with business. It's like the reason that I love building personal brands is because a personal brand gives you optionality in business, right? So like you're running a business and
Mhm.
you run paid ads and you send mailers and you do all this stuff and you make money. Well, what if all that money dried up and your business failed?
Mhm.
Then what? Well, if you had a personal brand that built a network and a loyal audience over time, your rebound potential and your ability to get back to success would
Mhm.
be significantly astronomically higher because you took the time to build an asset and a resource. A personal brand gives you optionality.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's it.
And
Everything we do should give us optionality.
then leveraging that, whether it is a career path through employment or your business or both or hybrid or the ebb and flow of that over
Yeah.
time, like you can have it all and your personal brand is still intact.
Yep. It never
So
goes away.
with
It's a
yeah,
digital
for
asset.
with legacy builder and the way you approach this conversation, I'd like to run two scenarios by you. One is the founder that doesn't have the personal brand and has the business. The other is the scenario of the employee that wants to have a business one day and doesn't really have the personal brand. So both don't have the personal brand. One is an employee, one is a business owner, and they both are starting out with curiosity around personal brand. How can Legacy Builder support them, and what are the best ways for them to extract the most support from you?
Yeah. So one thing that I'm super excited about is we partnered with Mighty Networks. Shout out to Gina. She's
Yay,
amazing.
Gina.
That's her CEO. And we are launching a Mighty Network community within the next month that is going to have options for both of those people. They're going to be able to come in and get the foundational principles of launching a brand and then continuing support on how to leverage that brand over time. Whether they're me sitting on the couch 3 years ago, or they're, hey, I'm a successful founder and I've heard all this talk about having a personal brand, but I have no idea how to do it. We're going to be able to resource them with exactly what they need to be successful there.
I love that. And then for the employee, I hear this sometimes where I would do this, but if I do that, I'll get in trouble with work, or there's heavy compliance, or there's, your outside business interests in the finance world are limited.
That's hard. That's a
It's
hard
hard.
question.
That's podcast
Yeah,
episode
I can
2.
answer it, but it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like you probably have some secrets for how to navigate the restriction.
Well, I started as an anonymous account
Okay.
online. I
Cool.
did. I
Hmm.
started as an anonymous Twitter account online. Legacy Builder 8 was my first handle. And but the secret was I treated it like it was me. It just didn't have my face.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think there's different modalities, and how you ask people is where they'll lead you.
Hmm.
Um, Video versus text, newsletter versus community. I always tell people choose one platform in one modality, and it it's it took me a long time to figure out where I was going. So I started in late 2021, started talking about my life, my story, things I've done. And then I went through like the ringer trying to figure out how to monetize. I tried
Mm-hmm.
affiliate marketing, I tried eBay, I tried Amazon drop shipping, I mean, you name if they had a course for it, I probably tried it. And then January of 22, I just said, you know what? I'm going to grow my audience and I'm going to tell my story. I'm going to write and I'm going to get really good at that.
Mm-hmm.
And along the way, I learned that I love branding and I loved what I was doing. And people started reaching out to me and for writing. And then I got a job, like some freelance work with a ghostwriting agency, started writing long form posts for other accounts. Then I met everybody that I've partnered with or got mentorship from or anything like that. It's like you said, the knowledge is out there. You just have to find the right delivery system for it. And
Mm-hmm.
so everybody I met online showed me the different knowledge I needed at the time in which I needed it. So then I started a ghostwriting agency, me, a laptop, some Google Docs, PayPal at times. And I started making a little bit of money. And then that compounded and started hiring people. I think we talk like the way digital entrepreneurship isn't traditional business model as people think about it. Like people think like I have to have an idea, then I need to make a business plan, then I need to go get a loan from the bank, I need to do this and do that. Well, no, you actually just need a way to get in front of people that have a problem that is worth being solved and paid for. And then you need to do that over extended period of time until you get to your freedom number. You don't need any money to do that. That's what I love about social media. You can start LinkedIn's a little different, right? That's why I like Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Twitter's my jam. I think Twitter has enough user base and enough passion to where you can go on, you can find your ideal client message and do it. But like somewhere there's a designer,
Mm-hmm.
there's a writer, there's a website builder, there's a closet organizer, there's this, there's that. There's people that have like these abilities or the propensity to learn a skill
Mm-hmm.
that you kind of like we always get taught young age to chase our passion. Don't chase your passion. Well, your passion always won't always pay,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think that's where a lot of people they're like, "Oh, I love cooking. I'm going to go start a restaurant." Well, it's like, okay, but like you pick your hard. I mean, pick your hard.
That's a flavor,
Um,
yeah.
but
Pun intended.
you might be able to make a program where like and I'm just spitballing here,
Mm-hmm.
where you like to cook and you've been cooking for your family for 5 years and you have this like methodology and way to do it that would help 100 people and there you go. And then you're like, okay, now I'm helping people this way. Maybe I can like get individual people where I help them. And like, you see how it goes. It just like kind of
Mhm.
spirals. And I think people need to like, there's a path to entrepreneurship where basically like you just need to be right in order to get out of a hole. And you have to pivot very quickly. I mentioned all my failures that I had at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like I was like, man, like some people are like, I tried this stuff for 10 years and it worked out. And I'm like, I tried it for a month, realized it wasn't going to work out, and then went to the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I found my thing and it was proven, I was like, okay, how far can I take this?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it like that's you have to have the propensity to do that.
The
And I'll
educated
say
guess
this one
is,
thing.
yeah.
Entrepreneurship is the fastest path to entrepreneurship. And I think that's something that's not said enough online.
Meaning what you can do in your job.
No, not necessarily. So let's say you want to be the next best ghostwriter. Okay, you want to write and you see Legacy Builder.
Mhm.
And you're like, okay, you have two options. You can start your own ghostwriting offer and try to find your own clients, or you can come over here, work for
Mhm.
me, and develop a skill.
Mhm.
Now, you still get location freedom, geographical freedom, financial freedom, and all this stuff.
Mhm.
But you're also developing the skill without the constraints of, man, if I don't sign another client,
Mhm.
it's almost like replacing this very strict model of what we see as the 9 to 5 world. And
Mhm.
the bridge over to remote owning your own business is finding these people that have developed further along than you, and riding this bridge over until you feel the freedom enough to start your own thing. And then you
Mhm.
can scale up from there. I think a lot of people just try to start their own thing.
Without having context or understanding of what all goes into it.
Yep. They just try to start their own thing.
Yeah.
And
I've
that's where you
heard,
see a lot of scams on the internet happening.
yeah, I've fallen prey to many. I've spent a lot of
Yeah, me too.
money on those coaching programs. It's like
Me
if I
too.
can help people mitigate that. I know we have to wrap here, but I know you have one article we're going to include how to build a personal brand from scratch with Legacy Builder. So we'll have that in the show notes. This was one of your podcast episodes that we want to share. And obviously your beautiful website, you have different email lists that I'm on that I look forward to reading. And I think that that's a great final note, Clifton, to share with listeners is to consider how can you be an entrepreneur with what you're already doing wherever that is, and then where do you jump
Amen.
off from there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Any
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Clifton, and thanks to everyone tuning in. We appreciate your support, and we hope you got one little nugget that you can implement in your life and take that action to create, I think, the life and success that you desire, that's on your terms, and breaking outside of some of the structures that may not be super supportive. So again, thanks for your time, and thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Lila Life Show, and we'll see you next week.